Hey boys and girls, this is Mr. Bell. We are going to talk today about dividing decimals. Okay, I know this is the big showstopper here, so let's go ahead and get started so we can get it over with. Dividing decimals, you're going to find that when you divide a decimal, it's similar to dividing whole numbers. Okay, but the placement of the decimal in the quotient is going to be determined specifically by the placement of the decimal in the dividend. Alright, now if you don't know what a divisor and a dividend is, then you need to go back and look at some old notes because we've talked about it. Okay, but let's look at a problem here real quick. I got this particular scenario. I got a high school track is 9.76 meters wide, or we would say 9 and 76 hundredths meters wide. It is divided into 8 lanes of equal width for track and field events. How wide is each lane? Okay, so first we need to figure out what it is exactly that's being divided, and hopefully you understand that the track is being divided, okay, into equal width lanes. So we've talked about it before. What's being divided goes on the inside, so the track is that's my decimal, is being divided by the number of lanes. Okay, so that goes on the outside. So the placement of the decimal in the quotient's the answer, and the answer goes up top. Okay, so what I've done is I've taken the decimal and I've just moved it straight up. Okay, straight up. Now, and I talked in a previous video where when you're dividing, whatever number you're dividing into, that's where you're going to put your numbers of your quotient. Okay, so let's talk specifically about that. So I want to think about, I'm dividing by 8, so I want to look at my first number, 9. All right, will 8 go into 9? How many groups of 8 are in 9? Well, there's one group of 8 in 9. So then I multiply 1 times 8, and I get 8. I subtract, and I get 1. So I come over to the 7, and I bring it down. Now I'm thinking to myself, how many groups of 8 are there in 17? Well, there are 2 groups of 8 in 17. So 2 times 8 is 16, and hopefully I'm going to have enough room here. I subtract 16 from 17, I get 1. Alright, but you notice, before I go too far, I put my 2 over the 7, because the 7 was the number that we were kind of going into, alright, with the 17. So now I'm bringing the 9 down and put it right here, so when I put my number in the quotient, I'm going to put it over the 9. So all this placement is for a reason. Okay, so I bring the 9 down. Alright, 8 will go into 19. How many groups of 8 are in... Oh, shoot, I put the wrong number there. I was thinking it looked a little weird. That's supposed to be a 6. That's supposed to be a 6. Alright, 8 will go into 16 2 times. 2 times 8, and I can't write it there, but I'm just going to kind of bring this up. 16. 8 times 2 is 16. I subtract, I get 0. So I'm done. So that tells me that each lane is 1.22 meters wide. Alright, so let's look at, hopefully, another problem. Okay, now that's dividing by a whole number when you don't have a decimal in the divisor. Okay, but you're going to be faced with situations where you have a decimal in the divisor, and what do you do at that point? Okay, well, when you're dividing a decimal by a decimal, or even a whole number by a decimal, okay, because the same steps apply. But it says when you're dividing decimals by another decimal, first you change the divisor to a whole number. Okay, and there's a lot of math involved here, but it's not that complicated, and there's a real simple way of looking at it. So you're going to change the divisor to a whole number by multiplying by a power of 10. All right, and then you have to multiply the dividend by that same power of 10. Okay, so let's and that may blow your mind. Hopefully not, but it's not as difficult as it sounds. So it says Ella uses, hold on, let's see. Ella uses half a pound of raspberries in each raspberry cake that she makes. How many cakes can Ella make with 3 1/4 pounds of raspberries? Okay, so the first thing you have to do is set the problem up. All right, what are we dividing? Well, we're dividing the 3 1/4 pounds of raspberries that she has. So I'm going to kind of try to set this up as high as I can. 3.25. Okay, so that's what's being divided. and then I'm dividing it by how many pounds of raspberries she puts in each cake. Okay, so that is 0.5. Okay, so before we start putting decimals up in the quotient, we got to get rid of this decimal here. So to do that, you're going to multiply by a power of 10. And what that power of 10 does is moves a decimal. For every increase in power of 10, say I multiply by 10, that's a power of 10, then the decimal place moves one place to the right. If I multiply by 100, the decimal moves 2 places to the right. If I multiply by 1,000, the decimal moves 3 places to the right, and so on. So all I have to do here is just multiply by a power of 10, which is, in this case, 10, because I only want to move it one place. But I have to do the same thing to the dividend. I got to multiply that by a power of 10, so that decimal moves one place to the right. You got to remember, this is kind of like a fraction. We're doing the same thing to the top of the fraction that we're doing to the bottom of the fraction. We got to keep it equivalent. Okay, so we multiply 0.5 times 10, and that moves the decimal one place to the right. And then we multiply 3.25 by 10, and that moves the decimal one place to the right. Now I can go ahead and move the decimal up to the quotient, because now I'm ready to divide, because I have a whole number here. I'm just dividing by 5 at this point, not 0.5 but 5. All right, so let's go ahead and divide. We look at our problem. At this point we follow a regular division problem. Okay, you're just going to divide, without thinking about the decimal. I want to look at the 5. Oops, I want to use my pointer here. I want to look at the 5 and see if it'll go into 3, and it won't. Okay, so then I got to look at 32. Will it go into 32? Well, yeah, it'll go in 6 times. Okay, so 5 will go into 32 6 times. 6 times 5 is 30. Okay, now notice I put my 6 over the 2 because that's the last digit of the number that I'm dividing into. All right, placement really counts here. 6 times 5 is 30. I subtract 30 from 32. I get a 2, and I bring down my 5. All right, 5 will go into 25. 5 times 5 is 25. I subtract, and I get 0. Okay, so she can make 6.5 cakes with 3.25 or 3¼ pounds of raspberries. Now, she can't actually make a half of a cake. Okay, so the correct answer to this, and this is a couple problems that we did in a couple other videos, and especially with like money. If you get 3 decimal places with a problem that deals with money, then you got to round to the hundreds place, because we don't use more than 100 pennies, so you can't have 3 decimal places. But here you can't make half of a cake, so you're either going to make a whole cake or you're not going to make anything. So the answer to this would be she can make 6 complete cakes with 3¼ pounds of raspberries. So she can make 6 cakes. All right. Another thing that I want to mention is that if there aren't any decimals in your divisor, let me see if I can just erase this stuff real quick. If there aren't any decimals in your divisor, then you still have to move, not the divisor but the dividend. Then you can still move. Why is this not doing what I want it to do? Well. So let's just say I had, for an example, I had 0.5 and I was dividing it in 325. Okay, I can't divide by a decimal, so I want to move that decimal out by multiplying by 10. Okay, and all I'm really doing is just moving the decimal one place to the right. If you don't want to think about the math aspect of it, think how many places to the right am I going to move that decimal. Okay, and then I got to move the decimal same number of places in the dividend. So I have a whole number. Where's my decimal in a whole number? Well, my decimal's right there, but I still have to move it. So if I moved it one place over here, then I have to move it one place here. Well, then I'm left with this blank right here, this spot. Okay, so what you do is you add a 0, okay, and then kind of extend your division bracket, and then your decimal goes right there at the top. So even if there's no decimal, or if there's a decimal but you move the divisor more times than maybe I don't want to talk about that. So anyway, that's all you have to do. Just move the decimal same number of places as you do in the divisor, in the dividend, and you'll be fine each time.